Hello, this is a walkthrough of the Chapter 4 program from the Android Bootcamp book. It's a program to make a medical calculator. It's going to introduce a lot of new things, including a specialized icon, which you can get from the companion site. So you download that zip file, unzip it, and get that file if you have not already downloaded and unzipped it to your computer. Show you how to do that and where to get it. This program is also going to introduce decision structures. It's going to do some layout things as far as margins and gravity. So it's got a lot in it. There's a lot of things that you should really make sure you understand, pay attention to, take good notes, put good comments into your program so you can use these techniques again. I'm not going to worry about the build version or anything like that for this one. We'll create our project as usual. Default text view is automatically added. We'll get rid of it. We'll change the theme as instructed in the book. Now remember, changing the theme on this page changes your view and what it looks like, but you have to set it in the manifest file for it to really take effect. Now here is the icon file we're going to use, and the book had some good information about file formats and sizes of these files. And notice there's a default launcher icon there. We're going to delete that one to make sure it doesn't use that one anymore. And then we're going to go to the manifest and change in code so that it knows to use the new file that we just copied over. And notice it's all lowercase letters. You'll get some complaints from the system if it's not lowercase. Follow that. And we will add the theme to the code. Now this is going to be some syntax that's not real intuitive. It's just something you have to find an example of, like in the book, and do it one time, and then you can always refer back to this to change it in the future. And the syntax starts out the same, and then you put the words that you saw on the chooser from the other XML file. This one I want with action bar. Alright, we can close that. Good idea to save all anytime you're making changes to these files. We're going to be using some new controls or widgets in this project as well. We will get to those momentarily, but for now let's get some text on here. Changing the text size, there's a couple different ways to do it. One way is you can just type right in there the text size. Also, you can click on the ellipsis button and you can set a value like this. You don't have to do it this way, but if there's going to be a certain value that you use over and over, you might want to set it almost like a variable this way, and then you can easily modify everything that you set to this one size. Setting color for the first time this semester. Use the pound sign and the HTML hex code. So it has a nice link to see what those codes are. Not the most intuitive or friendly way to set colors, but that's what we got to do. Now we're editing margins. Using the icons above the design view. We're going to add a text field. Remember, there's lots of different text fields. You choose the one that makes sense for the type of input that you're getting. Setting the hint property, and then setting the size. This is the other way you can set the size, just by clicking in that box and typing it. And get in the habit of setting the ID as well. We'll do that momentarily. We're going to set the top margin. This means that we're going to be down from the control above it by 15 units. And we're centering everything horizontally on this one. Now I tried to resize this and it wouldn't let me, because of the layout that was chosen. So I'm going to change the layout to relative, and then I should be able to resize this. Now we're adding the radio group. By default it starts with 3 radio buttons. We're going to delete one because this program only needs 2 choices. And then we're going to go setting the properties. The text underneath the text view is the one you need for these radio buttons. It can be kind of tricky. There's a couple different text fields or text properties of the radio buttons, but make sure you set the text underneath the text view. We want one to convert pounds to kilograms, and we want one to convert kilograms to pounds. That needs to be switched around. Doing some copying and pasting from the e-text here. Makes things go a lot quicker. And then be sure to set the ID property of those radio buttons. Setting the text size. This ID is going to be important later on. Remember, when you need to use these controls in code, you need to use their ID to associate them with a variable. That's what we're going to do here in the main Java file. We're going to declare a variable first at the class level called conversion rate and initialize it with 2.2. Declaring another variable, not initializing it, just reserving the spot in memory for it. And this is something that you have to do in most programming languages. Just Let the computer know that you're going to be using a variable and telling it what data type you want. And the double is a data type that can hold a decimal value. Alright, we've got text weight is not being resolved, so let's double check that we set this. And we did set it, so let's save all and see if that helps. And there we go. Now the name is being recognized. We're creating a variable called weight to store whatever was in that text field. Very important you understand these lines of code. Don't just copy and paste them. And you can copy and paste them, but make sure you understand what they're doing. This is creating a variable called pounds to kilo based on the radio button, or this is making that variable equal to that. It's assigning that radio button to this variable so that we can use it in code. Now we need a button to actually do our calculation. The button has to check to see which radio button is selected and then do a different calculation based on whichever radio button was selected. Set the text property of the text view of the button. Let the user know what the button does. Set the text size for consistency. And setting the margin to be consistent. The hint there helps you out. And then we need somewhere to show the result of our calculation. And we're going to do that in the text view. We don't want any text in that text view, so we're going to point that out here, but we'll set the size first and the color. It's nice to set all those things before you delete the text. It makes it easier to see and work with. And I'll delete the text. Save all. Remember, if you don't save all, that you might not recognize that ID in the code view here. So now we're creating a variable called results. It's holding, or it's associated with that text box that we just created. Creating a variable to hold, or to be associated with the button that we just made. Using the ID that we set. We're setting the on click for that button. Right? It was button convert, and then convert set on click listener. And you have to understand what that means. Don't just do this and be done with it. Go back and read if you need to. Comment so that you demonstrate that you understand what's going on. Remember, these Android projects, we want to keep them as small as possible, so we're only importing the code that we need, like the click listener and the button and the radio button code if we're using it. All right, now we want to, on the click, we want to store to our weight entered variable whatever was in that text box. Actually, whatever was in the text box went into that variable weight for line 24. All right, now this is setting the decimal format. It's not the most intuitive, easy to do thing. So again, you're going to do it one time, make some good comments about it, and then you'll be able to do it again. Now we're using our if statements to see which radio button is checked. We're also doing a little bit of validation to make sure that the weight entered is reasonable. So we have a nested if statement. And notice the indentation and notice the curly braces. Only if the pounds to kilo is checked And only if the weight entered is less than or equal to 500 do we want to actually perform the calculation and store the result. And now we've got a couple of squiggly lines here, so we should probably figure out what those mean. Right, we can put our mouse over and it says syntax error. Remember, I'm copying and pasting from the e-text here. And there's something wrong with this line. And if you look at it closely, it's something inside of those quotation marks. And it's probably difficult to see on this video, but that's the hint. The hint is that it's something inside the quotation marks. You can double check the syntax in the book, you can double check what it says, but what happened was when I copied and pasted from the book, and this happens for Microsoft Word often as well, the double quote characters get treated a little bit differently. There's a different, slightly different looking double quote symbol that doesn't work with Java, so we need to make sure it's just the normal double quote that you get when you type it in here. Sometimes when you copy and paste, you get the wrong one. All right, so now we're setting on the else. This else is associated with the second if. So this happens if the weight less than or equal to 500 is false. So that'd be another good comment to put here, that this code happens when the second if is false. The first if has to be true in order for us to get this far. Pounds to kilo must have been checked for us to get to this point. Now we're using toast, a type of pop-up message kind of thing. Let's see what that looks like when you run the program. Notice again the indentation. And the book has us add another if statement. I pasted kind of weird again from copying and pasting from the e-text, but I can go through and fix some of these things. It's another if statement that matches almost exactly. It's to check if the kilos to pound is checked. We're going to do almost the same thing. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is the calculation to get the result, and the validation is going to be a little bit different, but the structure is the same. Notice it didn't automatically do the indenting for me either, so to make this code readable, I'm going to fix the indentation so that it's indented one time within each if. Use the tab key right there. So that the code inside the if is indented, and then the if and the else line up, and the code inside the else is indented one time. It makes the code much more readable. You always have an if and the corresponding close curly brace lined up the same. Now we've got two curly braces at the same level. You shouldn't get that. That's better. Always curly braces should go back incrementally like that. And I left an error in here so we can see how to check errors. You click on the Problems tab, and you can double click the error there, and it takes you to the line where it thinks that there's an error. And this error that I left in here was just a missing semicolon. Didn't copy and paste over right, so no problem. We save it, try to run it, choose our emulator. Okay, and this is another error that you might see. I left this one in here for you too. Not necessarily going to see it on this program, but you might see it in the future. Just get in the habit of doing a Google search on any error that you find. And this one says something about ADD being down. You just have to search, find a reputable site with an answer, try the steps, read the comments. And this one says you have to go into the command line. Remember dir and cd, these command line things that are important to know. You should learn in a few different classes. If you do something in the command line and it doesn't look like it worked, and it gives you a bunch of instructions, it's telling you that it didn't work and showing you what would have worked, what you could have done. So this is what the syntax that was better. The spacing was off a little bit on the other one, so it showed that it didn't work. So I'm killing the ADB server and restarting it. This is kind of like a little reboot of this process that was needed. So that might happen to you at some point when working with Android Eclipse projects. Once you get it restarted, your program runs. You don't want to just make sure it starts, you want to make sure it actually works properly with the data. So ideally you'd put in something that you knew was correct, or you could verify it in Google or something. And make sure that you are getting the correct answer there, and then write number format. Check all your different if conditions. Alright, so this is the other if statement. It's also doing the validation there. Remember, use the soft number keypad that comes up, not the QWERTY keyboard on the right. And there you have it.